Are you looking for more out of your life? Do you need ideas on how to start new businesses and how to move forward in your own personal life? Well, guess what? You have come to the right radio show. At You Can Overcome Anything podcast show, you will learn and hear from many people from all walks of life who are sharing their challenges, their stories, the habits, and the mind shifts they had to overcome to become who they are today. On top, you will get a chance to connect and see how you can overcome anything by networking and learning about your next move through this radio show. I present to you our great speakers at You Can Overcome Anything podcast show with your host, Cesar Espino. Hello there and welcome back to another episode of You Can Overcome Anything podcast show. It is your host, Cesar Espino, and today I have a special guest. His name is Derrick Alvarez. Hey, Derrick, how are you, man?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I am doing good. I'm doing good. So let me just give the listeners a little bit about your background, and then we can dive into that. So Derrick is a small business owner, and he is a married father and of four, and the co-founder of FlossTech Services, in an IT company that specializes in small business and residential services. Right? That's kind of like your overview. Why don't you tell me, one, what were you born, and give me more about your upbringing, because it seems like you had a pretty interesting growing up. I want to know more about that for sure.
Yeah. So I grew up not really having much. You know, my parents both worked hard and stuff like that. I come from a mixed background. My dad's German, my mom's Puerto Rican, so it's a little different, but it's a cool mix. And I have, we just growing up. My parents were. My dad was a carpenter. My mom was a salesperson for flooring. So it's a pretty good mix there. But things weren't always easy. You know what I mean? In and out of poverty. My mom didn't really. Well, my parents both never really knew exactly how to manage their money well, and so I kind of learned the hard way how to deal with that. And I never really had an entrepreneurial mindset until I was in my early 20s. That's when I really got into sales. I was doing a lot of restaurant work, in and out of restaurants and other customer service based stuff, and just trying to find ways to make ends meet. I graduated high school, never went to college. I didn't really apply myself that much in school. I just kind of wanted to get it over with. I dealt with a lot of adult things as I was younger, and when you do that, then you go to school and seeing all these kids just being kids, it just, you never quite fit in properly. And so that was both an advantage and a disadvantage for me, I think. You know what I mean? It's just a different set of circumstances. And, I'm not sure if I would have changed a whole lot if I could do it over, but there are some things that I often reflect on that kind of help me, in my current state. I'm now 27 years old. I've got 4 kids. My oldest daughter was born with a previous relationship, and her mom ended up leaving me shortly after my daughter was born. So I was a single dad at 16, still graduating high school, working full time, and dealing with a young daughter, infant daughter as a teenager. So a lot of different struggles and hurdles and stuff like that. But I try not to use that as any type of excuse to not try to do my best.
Yeah. I think I want to go back to the fact that you had your daughter at an early age, because I think that there might be a lot of people that are listening to the show that might be going through something probably similar, or even if they're in their 18s or early 20s, they still see that as a struggle, as a challenge, right? So for you, I guess maybe more so to put things into perspective, into a content, how is it that you had a kid at such an early age? Was it the fact that you were missing some sort of a connection, or what was the reason?
Honestly, I think it was my craving for a family. You know what I mean? I wanted to have some sort of like connection with my girlfriend at the time. I wanted to have like a more of I guess a ride or die kind of situation. I wanted to have that connection to where people couldn't be in and out of my life. I just wanted her to be. We both decided together to have her at an early age. She was a little older than me. She was 18. I was 16. And so, she was working at the time. I was working at the time, and it wasn't looking back at it, obviously it wasn't the best choice, but it was something that we decided on because we both were lacking a family environment, and we wanted to create that. But then I guess when my daughter finally showed up, she just couldn't handle the pressure of dealing with that and with working, and we just ended up not being the best fit. We were together for a couple of years, and it's just I guess the child being there was kind of the straw that broke the camel's back, unfortunately. But to me, it was the opposite reaction. My daughter gave me strength that I didn't know that I had previously, and she allowed me to actually be, the best version of myself because I never had the best self confidence, and so when she came in my world, I started trying not for me but for her because I knew that I was providing for someone else instead.
Mm.
And yeah, it's definitely can be tough, and it definitely can be a struggle for sure, especially if you don't know what you're doing. But it just my I guess my advice to people is just reach out to help. You know what I mean? Don't be ashamed of asking for help or guidance from others, even if it's something like government assistance.
Yeah.
It can be something that's a good tool to use. It doesn't mean that you're abusing the system or whatever. The system's there to use it. I mean, I was working full time and still qualified because of my daughter, and I was on Medicaid and food stamps just because I wouldn't be able to afford it otherwise. And thankfully I didn't have to stay on it for too long. I was on it for probably about a year or so, but I mean, it was. I remember going to the office and I remember crying my eyes out because I felt like such a failure. But looking back on it now, if I didn't do it, I would have been in a lot worse position, and I would have probably lost my daughter to the state if I couldn't feed her and provide for her. So it's not that I was sitting around being lazy at home. I was working full time, working hard, trying to make sure that I made ends meet, and a little extra help. It doesn't matter where you get it from, as long as it's done honestly. You know what I mean? Just do what you got to do.
Right. Yeah. How long after you had your daughter did you separate with your ex?
She actually ended up leaving us about 6 months. 6 months after she was born.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah.
So that must have been, that must have been very challenging for you. Like again, being 18, having a kid, and then not having the support from the mom, and just kind of going through that. So I guess what was going through your head at that time, right? Because a lot of people might turn into drugs, gangs, and I don't know if any of that was in your past. Nevertheless, though, people tend to go that direction, and then they don't snap out of it. Some go that direction, they do snap out of it, and then they create something off of that. So how was your situation?
Yeah. So I never did the whole gang scene. I always felt like I was too not really physically strong enough to do that sort of stuff, and I wasn't really intimidating to anybody or anything like that. And I never really had anybody reach out to me. I've had friends that were in gangs, and I had band members that have been involved with different groups and stuff like that. But it never really felt like it was for me. I never felt like I could do that sort of thing. And not that that's positive or negative. That's just I
Mm-hmm.
just felt like I didn't fit in anywhere, and especially if I had friends and family that weren't wanting me, I didn't feel like strangers would want me either. No matter what I did. So
Right.
I never really went that route. Drugs I never really did either. I never got into in that sort of stuff just because I was a writer. Growing up, that's what I wanted to be. I was a writer and a music composer, and
Mm.
I just didn't want anything to affect my mind, to alter the state of my mind, because I figured that if I did that, then I wouldn't be able to actually focus on my creative process. So
Yeah.
that's all. But it's not to say that I haven't met and dealt with a lot of people that have gone the same road as me and then just took a different turn and went down, the life of drugs and stuff like that. I mean, especially in my area where I live in kind of like it's like suburban slash rural Virginia. It's not
Mm-hmm.
very populated.
Mm-hmm.
Just outside of Harrisonburg, Virginia, and there's just not a lot of stuff to do. People, there aren't really many organizations that help the youth out. There's not a lot of activities you can do that's fun. So a lot of people turn to either drugs or relationships, and I just turned to relationships. That was kind of my drug or my or my gang. She was my my support, even though she wasn't there in the end. I mean, when we were together, she was my support system, and
Yeah.
then when she left, it definitely left me kind of devastated, because it was sort of there was a lot of signs to say it was going to happen, I guess, but it was the way she did it was very abrupt and was very difficult for me to deal with, and um, I just kind of made work my focus, and I was working in a restaurant at the time, and I just picked up extra hours, and I just kept on pushing forward and counting my money up and saving my pennies and doing what I could. My dad let me stay with him for a little while to so I can have a place to stay, and I just kept on just trudging forward and doing my best. And I know that's not easy for everyone. It wasn't really easy for me either. It's just whenever you get feeling like you're weak or exhausted, you want to turn to those things. I just look in my daughter's eyes and I just see her, and I just know that it's not worth losing her, because it's all for her at that point.
Yeah, definitely, and I definitely have a lot of more questions regarding that, because I think, again, I know firsthand many people go through those kind of challenges, and sometimes they need people like you that can give some insight as to what are some of the possibilities that you can do to step out of that from that perspective. I know for myself, there's definitely, I didn't know I had that connection with you. I had my daughter when I was 16 too, and
Oh, okay.
definitely I can see that that was not, for me, it wasn't an easy thing. Yet I also, just like you, decided to focus on me, focus on just taking care of my daughter and being able to provide for her, and decided to take that journey. So I guess one of the questions that I have is, like, obviously I was not a single dad, right? And so that's something that, even looking back, I know it wasn't easy. I mean, I remember working, pretty much right after high school, or after school, I had to go to work, and I was full time student, and I was always kind of like an A student, so I always have a lot of homework, and it was just not an easy ride. Being a single dad, that can be difficult, right? And so you oftentimes hear, well, I'm a single mom, the dad left, right? In this case, it was the other way around. And
Yeah.
sometimes people forget about the fact that men do go through those challenging moments, right? And so it's really, in my opinion, is part of that mindset. It's part of being able to have that strength in your mind to keep pushing forward. My question to you is, besides having that, how do you deal with the fact that you're 16, 17, let's just say,
Yeah.
and she decides to leave? Like, some people want to hold on to that, right? Some people are like, no, I want to stay because of my kid. I want to be in
Yeah.
this toxic relationship because of my kid. How do you step away from that, even though it's painful and you might be crying your ass out every single night, missing
Yeah.
that person? How do you move forward?
Well, it was definitely difficult because she moved out of state. So she wasn't. It wasn't like I bumped into her at the store or anything like
Mm,
that, or that she was, just around in that sense. But it was one of those things where um, it just it was abrupt cut, and it wasn't necessarily a clean cut. But when she was gone, she was gone. I had no contact,
mm,
and so yeah, for like the first, I guess, 2 3 months, it was very like hanging out with my daughter, working, and then just whenever my daughter was asleep and I was home from work, it was definitely one of those things where, like, when the lights go out and everyone else is in bed asleep, you're still wide awake, just mind racing, trying to figure out what you did wrong, what you could have fixed, or what you could have done things differently. And I don't know. I don't know how else to explain it. It's just seeing my kid, being there in my arms, then
mm.
smiling up at me and that sort of thing. It really just gives you a different perspective, because it's nothing else seems to be as important anymore. And it's been very very tough time to get to where I'm at now. And being a single dad is definitely tough. It's because, especially in high school, you know what I mean. I had like friends at school and stuff like that, but no one was interested in helping out with that, because they were like, hey, I'm going to a party, and I'm like, okay, well, have fun at the party. I'm gonna
Yeah,
I'm gonna
during
go
that
pick up
during
another
the,
shift.
right, exactly. I mean, during that time, I would say, men or female, like they're thinking about probably getting drunk, going to parties, going to whatever the case may be, and here you're like, I'm trying to raise the kid. I need to work. I need to do this. Like, it's different dynamics. You don't have that one thing in common. A lot of times you don't. I know that was for me. Like, right, all my friends were partying or doing this, hanging out,
Yeah,
doing whatever the case may be. I'm out there working to support my daughter, right? So I can
yeah,
see that variance there.
yeah. And it's definitely, I just it was a lot of my friends kind of didn't understand. There were some friends who stuck by me regardless, and they were there. They didn't really know what it was like to help out. And it was always fun because my best friend, his name's Noe. He used to come in on. He was my neighbor growing up, and he still is actually. Um, but he would still hang out with me, and we'd do stuff. You know what I mean? Because he was always kind of doing his own thing anyway. So it was always funny seeing two guys walking around with a little girl in the mall or something like that, on my days off that I did have. You know what I mean? So we always got kind of funny looks, and he was always there to kind of support me and just tell me, just talk me through some things and stuff like that. So I mean, he was definitely a good support system. And of course, I had my dad was letting me stay there, and my dad was open to stuff. He wasn't too excited about the prospect of me having a kid, but
Right.
he saw that I was doing the right thing to to be responsible and do the right thing, and so he allowed me to stay as long as I kind of kept the straight and narrow and did the right thing. And I tried college for a little while. It didn't really work out for me, and I just didn't. I just felt, I don't know. It just felt, I went to a community college and it felt too much like high school for me at first. And I tried to take it seriously, and the professors kind of looked at me like, I wasn't really going to amount to much. And I was like, you know what, this is kind of a negative atmosphere, and I can't really afford it anyway. So I just kind of dropped out and just did restaurant work, because restaurant work, you can make a lot of money if you do it the right way and pick up the right shifts. And actually, if you work those 14, 16-hour shifts at the restaurant, don't take breaks, don't eat anything, and actually just push right through it, and you can clear $200, $300, $400 in a day if you actually focus, and I was doing that sort of thing and just paying my bills, trying to get some savings up. And, I was, I don't know, just trying to do what I could to make ends meet. And then I stopped living with my dad after a while, and I was in another relationship for a short while. We moved in together, but then she and my daughter weren't getting along well, and then that caused problems. And then we ended up breaking up, and then she left, but I was still in the apartment. I couldn't afford the apartment. I got evicted out of that apartment, and I didn't have anywhere to go. And so I was briefly homeless. My mom said, come out and live with me. My mom moved out to Missouri after my parents split up, and so I moved out to Missouri, lived in like a little small bedroom, with my daughter, and I was, my mom wasn't charging me anything, but it wasn't great. It was, hot in the summer, cold in the winter, that sort of thing. It was just a small little bedroom. I didn't have anything to my name. I had an old beat up car. I packed everything I could, grabbed my daughter, and just went. And it was definitely a tough situation to make that big of a move, because not only was I cutting out, everything else, cutting out my support group that I did have, my best friends that I did have, all those I had to leave behind, just because I didn't have anywhere else to stay, and I couldn't afford my own place because the rent was too high where I was staying at. And so I was out there for a little while, about a year or so, and then things didn't work out there because of just standard family issues. My mom and I get along great, but we, living together is different as an adult. It's just, we have different, just differences that we can't really reconcile all the time. So it's just better for us to love each other from a distance, I guess, and see each other on holidays, that sort of thing. Yeah. And it's not to say my mom's a bad person or anything like that. We just don't, it's just different being an adult. You get along differently with your parents sometimes, that's all. And so then my brother lived in Florida, and my brother was like, hey, come down and live with me. So I was like, okay. So I did that. So I've been couch surfing pretty much I did that for about 6 years between different places, just couch surfing and sleeping on the floor. And my brother said, you can come down to me from Florida. And I was like, okay, great. And then he's like, well, we don't really have a space for you. Your daughter can sleep with my daughter in the same room, but you need to find, you got to sleep in the living room. Mm-hmm. And they just bought this really expensive couch, and they said, we prefer that you don't sleep on the couch. And I said, that's fine. So I slept on the floor. Yeah. And so I was sleeping on the floor for about 6 months or so down there. And then same thing. My brother and I just, we're good at short bursts, but not always, super long term, especially because, I was trying to raise my daughter the way I wanted to raise my daughter. He was trying to raise his daughter the way he wanted to raise his daughter. And our family values aren't exactly the same. And so that caused the issue. And the worst thing that ever happened down there is my brother and I actually ended up getting in a fist fight. And then that day I was on the street. So we're good now. We worked it out now, but at the time it was very heated and it wasn't good. I'm not a fighter. I don't like to fight people and stuff like that. It was just one of those things that, like, we got heated, and he started shoving me and I shoved him back, and then it was bad. It was really bad. But then I was actually on the actual streets living in my car with my daughter for 2 weeks. There was a girl that was interested in me down there, and I knew that she would put me up, so I had to take a chance, roll the dice down there. I didn't know her that well. She was involved with drugs, and I was like, I don't want my daughter being around this, but I don't want to be on the street either. So I just kind of like kept my daughter really close to me. She treated my daughter well, and that was a very, very, very short relationship. I just started working for AT&T as a store representative down there. It was my first sales job, like my first big sales job. And so I was selling cell phones and internet and TV and stuff down there. And it turns out I was really good at it. So I was making some good commissions, and I got my first big commission check. And I was like, you know what? I can't do this anymore. I don't want to be in this situation. So I quit my job the next day and moved up to Virginia, back home. My dad said he found a spot for me. He said I could stay there for a little while. So I moved in immediately. It was another time where for the third time in 3 years, I was moving. For the third time in 3 years, I was moving across the country with just what was in my car, basically. And, I finally got to, I ended up just settling in. And the next day I started looking for work at AT&T again. And I told them, I was like, listen, it was a bad situation. I told my manager, I was like, I'm really sorry I had to leave, but if you could write me a decent review, give me a good referral, I'd really appreciate it. And I'm really sorry that I couldn't stay down there. It was just a toxic environment for me. And he was like, I see a lot of potential in you, and I am hurt to see you go, but I'll definitely help you out. And he did. And so then I started working at AT&T in Virginia, and working. And my dad was watching my daughter while I was working, so that was nice to have that support there. And then I just started making commissions, working up the ranks until finally, after about a year or two, I had my own store, AT&T store I was running, and just really knocking it out and doing really well with sales and making, $3,000, $4,000, $5,000 a month just doing commission sales. And I actually felt like I was doing something that was good, and that's actually where I met my business partner. And then that's when we started my business shortly after.
And you know what? I gotta tell you, that's a really amazing, life you had there, right? I mean, when you think about it, you had so many downfalls, and you went through a lot of different challenges, going from one state to another, being homeless, living on the car, living on the couch, all of that. Yet it goes back to one of the things that you mentioned earlier, and that is that you look at your daughter, and that was your motivation, that was your why. So a lot of times when I talk to people, is if you're in a tough situation, you have to be able to determine or identify what is that purpose, what is that why. And sometimes it's more than just on the surface. You got to really look deep down on you and say, what is that why, what is that purpose, why am I doing all these things that I'm doing, and what am I willing to go through to get to where I want to get to. And that's exactly what you did. Regardless of everything you went through, you came back to that foundation of, how can I support my daughter, how can I give her more. And then through that, you started finding opportunities that really led to what you have, right? And so let's talk about your company now, and how did that all unfold?
Yeah, absolutely. So the manager who hired me in Virginia at AT&T was actually my business partner. His name is RJ Jones. He's a super great guy, family man himself. And so it was kind of funny because I was going in to talk to him because I put in my resume, and the district manager was actually out of the state for a conference. And I told him, I was like, I messaged him on Facebook. I found out who he was, messaged him on Facebook. I said, hey, I know this is kind of unorthodox for me to message you this way, but my name is Derrick. Here's my resume. I worked at AT&T for a little while down in Florida. I want to move. I moved back up here to start a better life for myself. I really would appreciate the chance. And he said, I'm out of the state. He's like, I'll definitely consider it and see what I can do. But I wanted to go a little bit further. And I was like, you know what? I know what store I want to work at. I know exactly where it's at. I know the location. So I'm going to go there and talk to the store manager because I want to make a good impression. So I get there. He's dealing with some customers, and I was waiting in line, and I just sat down on the couch that was there, and I was waiting patiently. And he goes, I'll be with you in a second. I was like, no problem. And so he's dealing with these customers, and they're kind of on the fence or whatever. And they said, I'm thinking about getting an upgrade, but I'm not really sure. But since I moved back up here so quickly, I did know some of the promotions that were going on already. So I started, as a customer, telling them about, the promotions that I just got. And I was like, well, yeah, I just got this for me and my, I said for me and my wife, and I was lying at the time. I was just kind of, joking around, being like, yeah, I got, me and my wife got these phones because it was a man and his wife. And I was like, they're great and they work really well. And, that's actually a really good model. And I think that, I'm not sure if the promotion's still going, but I got mine a couple weeks ago, and I got this awesome watch and a tablet to go with it. And they said, oh, really? And then he said, the RJ said, yeah, that is still going on. That's great. I'm glad that, everybody, they were able to help you. And I was like, yeah, it's fantastic. You guys should definitely try it out. And they he ended up getting 4 new sales off of it. So,
Wow.
after they left, it was late at night. It was like 8 o'clock. And and they closed right at 8. So I was there right at closing. And he was like, hey, thanks for that. And I was like, yeah, no worries. I was like, yeah, I'm Derrick. I'm applying for a job here. So
Nice.
he put in a good word for me, and 2 weeks later, I was hired. I did an interview with like 4 different managers, and they all liked me, and
Hmm.
got started. And I just kept working. I picked up extra shifts. I was there even on my days off. I was there in the store trying to help tidying things up, off the clock, that sort of thing. Don't tell anybody. But I was I just wanted to make a good impression. I knew that this job was like an actual, it could lead to a career if I wanted to. Whereas a restaurant is great, but it doesn't really give you a whole lot of places for advancement because,
Mm.
if you get promoted to, restaurant manager, you're working 60 hours a week on salary, not making that much. You make more as a server sometimes. So, and I was like, I just want to do something that I'm good at. And sales was my calling, and cell phone sales was what my specialty seemed to be. And I was really happy with that.
Mm.
And I was hitting my marks, hitting my numbers, and I got promoted to assistant manager after about 6 months to a year. And then 6 months to a year after that, I got promoted to store manager and had my own store in a competing store with my manager, RJ.
Yeah.
And so we had like a friendly competition. And one thing that really I'm always really proud of is that the store that I took over was a mall, and at a shopping mall, the cell phone stores, they don't always do the best. And
Mm.
they had a they had a 6-year contract at the mall, and it was already been in there for about 2 or 3 years. And the district manager told me, he's like, Derrick, I don't expect much out of this mall. We haven't made money since it opened. We've been bleeding money out of the store. Just kind of keep it tidy. Don't let anyone steal.
Mm.
And, this would be a good way for you to get your foot in the door. And then if you do okay, we'll get you a different store.
Mm.
And I was like, cool, but that's not what I wanted. I wanted to actually do well.
Mm.
So I came up with a few different promotions that I curated myself that I went over with the district manager and got his approval on. And it was all stuff that was already available, but I just worded it differently so that way it made sense to
Mhm.
customers right up front. Um, and I did some marketing online, and I did some marketing through some phones as well. And I told the shopping mall management, I told them, I was like, listen, I've got these promotions going on. I'd like to post them to the website. They said, okay, great. And next thing I know, 2 3 days later, the mall was just packed, just coming to my store.
Mm.
And I was working there just by myself. I didn't have any employees at the time. It was just me, open and close by myself. And um, I was just knocking it out, and I made it profitable for the first time since conception in less
Wow.
than 2 weeks.
Wow.
Yeah, so I was really impressed with that. I made over $11,000 in commission in 2 weeks.
Wow, that's
So
amazing.
yeah,
And I gotta tell you that's one thing that I'm getting a lot from you, and hopefully the people that are watching and listening can take that too. Is that there's that you continue to push forward, right? No matter what, you're persistent and you're just moving forward. And I like one thing that you said here, and you said that the things get better, right? No matter what, if you do the right thing and push hard and actually take things seriously and want to do the right by who you really are deep down, then you can make that change and find that difference. Professionally, you are not alone, right? So, can you elaborate more on that? Because I think that's a very powerful message. It comes down to like at the end of the day, deep down, you are already somebody bigger and greater than you think you are on the surface. How do you find that person, or how do you get that inner self out of yourself and then continue to push through?
yeah. So one thing that I definitely think that a lot of people struggle with is being able to talk to themselves,
Mm.
and actually recognizing that they aren't what other people say they are. They are who they are. Period. On the inside, and it's really tough sometimes when the world's telling you, one thing or another. It's easy to fall prey and listen to that and to take it to heart. But if you just keep consistent and just know that you're trying to do the right thing and actually being, like you said, persistent and just actually going for it and not letting the world break you when they try. I think that that's what really allows you to come into those conversations with your past self and your current self as well. Because sometimes I look in and just kind of self reflect and think, what would the younger me say? Though me before I became, before I had, sex out of wedlock and had a child and stuff, what would I say to myself now? Would I be proud of myself if I was talking to myself from my past? Would he see me today and be proud of who I became, or would he want to punch me in the face and tell me to get my act together? You know?
Yeah.
And there are definitely times when I've had that where I wasn't doing the right thing. You know what I mean? As an adult, there are times when I have had alcohol. It's not that I don't drink. I just, and there are times when I've done it in excess, just kind of, I was just, feeling sorry for myself, that sort of thing. That does happen. You know what I mean? I'm not saying I'm a perfect person. I've gone through struggles, and I've been a struggle for myself. I've been a burden on myself too. I've told myself that I wasn't good enough before, and I've told myself that I didn't want to do this anymore. And and literally my daughter saves me every time. And, now my wife and my other kids save me as well. You know what I mean? I have that support system now, but even back when it was just me, just on the streets, just me and my daughter, I mean, it's so easy to say, no, I don't want this anymore. It's, it just takes a 15-degree turn of your wrist while you're driving a car, and it ends everything. You know what I mean? Those dark thoughts exist within everybody. To say that they don't is just a lie. But honestly, it's overcoming that by thinking, what is worth it. And sometimes, honestly, I think of what is my best memory. You know what I mean? Have I experienced my best memory yet? Have I experienced, the worst thing about victory experience? I still have too much left to do to know that I'm not going to give up yet. And I refuse. And every time that I have a friend or family member or loved one and they're thinking the same thing, I'm like, no, because I haven't shared the best memory with you yet. I want that.
Mm.
If you're not going to stay alive for yourself, stay alive for me. I want that. And I think we can do that together,
Yeah.
you know, and just being able to be there for yourself and be there for everybody, and just being able to look at things objectively as much as possible. Although it's really difficult sometimes, it's easier said than done. It's easier to say this in a podcast after I already went through it. If you would have been interviewing me while I'm in my car crying alone, my daughter's screaming in the back seat hungry, then I might be talking to you in a whole different, in a whole different light. But I think that just knowing that I made it out of that, I was like, I can do so much more, and I can take that negativity and turn it into a positive, and try to make sure that things can actually be good for, be better than good. My things are good right now for me,
Mhm.
but I want things to be great.
Right.
I want to just excel. And that's not a selfish thing. That's not me trying to be like, oh, I'm trying to be some millionaire so I can have a nice car and a nice house. I don't want to have to worry about where the money's coming from anymore. I don't want to have to count my pennies at the gas station anymore. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'm done with that life, and I feel like I've paid my dues, and I feel like I've earned it.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
that's all.
I love what you said, and that is, maybe a lot of times, sometimes we don't have that conversation, right, with ourselves. And sometimes, I think it was Les Brown said, the most important conversation that you might ever have is with yourself, right? And sometimes we
Yeah,
forget about that. We were talking to other people, but the most important conversation, and maybe even the most smart conversation, is talking to yourself, because you can find so many things from that, right? Let me ask you this: is there anything that you do on a day-to-day basis, or what are your rituals? Tony Robbins calls them as rituals. What are your rituals or your habits that you do on a day-to-day basis to stay positive? Because you've gone through a lot of stuff, right? And obviously you've been able to come out of that stuff. And
yeah.
I know deep down that it's not just going through the motions. There's got to be something within that self-development, or something that you're doing that is helping you. Obviously, your daughter's one, that in your family now, that's another one. Any other tangible things that you're doing to help you through that?
Yeah, honestly, meditation is key. And not just, and a lot of people think meditation is crossing your legs, pinching your fingers, and closing your eyes on a mountaintop. That's not what meditation is. Meditation is doing the dishes, putting your headphones on, listening to music. You know what I mean? Actually, just relaxing, doing whatever makes you feel like the pressure is no longer on your shoulders. And then that's when you use that time, even if it's 2 minutes, 5 minutes a day. It doesn't have to be some hour-long session where you get lost into the ether of all of your emotions and just falling into some massive enigma. All it is just literally just tuning things out for just 5 minutes,
Mm.
and just closing your eyes and just being present. Just be where you are, and just kind of look at things. The first thing that ever happened to me that actually really opened my eyes was when I was bills were overdue, electric was getting cut off, stuff like that was happening. And my daughter was in the living room dancing, right? And just for no reason. And I didn't. At first, I wanted to get a little frustrated because I was like, I need to deal with all this stuff, and here she is over here dancing, not a care in the world. You know what I mean? And at first, I got frustrated, but then I just looked at her, and the more I looked at her, I was like, just putting it different perspectives. Just it made you see like, why am I not dancing too? Why is this so important? It's what I mean. Like it it seems like there's so much weight all the time on everybody, men, women, equally. It doesn't matter. Everyone has their own stuff, and as a dad, my weight is being a provider. You know what I mean? A lot of people might say that's a little old fashioned, but it is who I is. It is what it is. It's who I am. It's how I was raised. I try my best to be the provider in every situation that I can be, and a protector as well. And when I feel like I failed that crushes me more than anything. But seeing her dance, I was just like, how is that even possible? You know what I mean? And it just kind of like just staring at it longer, I just was like, man, I created that, and that is pure joy. So out of all of the things that I screwed up, I still created some form of joy in the world, and that
Mm,
kept me going, and that really made me realize that like I am not totally worthless. I have value, and I have a something good that I did, and she's there living it. And I was just really excited to be a part of that. And then I did start dancing with her, and I cried about it. And then I just was like, all right, that was a good 5 minutes. Now it's time to get to work. What can I do? Let's reevaluate, realign, and attack.
yeah.
So that's what I did. And, like I said, it's not an easy road. It's not easy to do. And not everybody's going to be able to do that right away. But I mean, whatever it is for you, just, meditation doesn't have to be, like I said, sitting on some mountaintop, doesn't have to be doing dishes. It's whatever it is for you. You know what I mean? If you're into music, listen to music. If you're into yoga, do yoga. If you're a construction worker or something like that, if you're doing manual labor, you know what I mean? Just think about what while you're on your lunch break, if you have a lunch, whatever, take a second out, look up at the sky while you're doing some work. If it starts raining, don't be mad that you're getting wet. Just be mad that life is forming around you. You know what I mean?
Mm,
It's like I said, it's not easier said now that I'm sitting down in my own house. You know what I mean? Like hanging out with my family, but you know. In those trying times, I've done manual labor jobs before, here and there, in between my other stuff. You know what I mean? I've done different stuff like that, and I just it's the different ways to get through it. You know what I
yeah.
mean? One thing that I did when I was working at a turkey hatchery, probably the worst I've ever had, and it was my job to make sure the turkeys were birthed and put them on conveyor belts, make sure they got cleaned up and stuff like that. And it was a lot of manual labor, a lot of hard, heavy lifting, covered in feathers, covered in feces, covered in sweat and dirt and grime all day long, 12 to 18 hours a day, just struggling really hard. And part of what I just said was called dumping. You put the birds on a conveyor belt and they go up there. It's a job that I was never really proud of having, but it was work. And so I did that, and I was only making like $10 an hour, and I thought that was good money at the time. And I was like, $10 an hour, man. There's not much I wouldn't do. But I did that, and one thing that actually got me through was, it's kind of stupid, but I would I was my inaugural address, if I was ever to become president, is what I would practice that speech. And I was just like, I know that I'll probably never even run for president or ever be president or anything like that, but it's just the idea was just a fun little idea. And I was like, you know what? It's okay. I'll get through this because one day I'll be president, and I'm going to prepare my speech. So that's what I did. And now I just do things that's going to help my company out, and just find different ways to market myself and market my company. And that's what
Yeah.
gets me through on those hard days.
Yeah, there's two things you mentioned that hopefully they cut onto that, and I like that. The number one is that even when you're like, again, looking at all these bills, electricity is going to be cut out, all these different things, right? It's like no matter how hard things might be, you can always find appreciation on the little things, right? There's always something to appreciate. In your case, seeing your daughter dance, sometimes just appreciating that you're still breathing, that you're still here, that you're watching this, that you're listening to this. The fact that you're doing that, that means that God, universe, or whoever you believe in, is not
Yep.
done with you. And it doesn't matter if you're on the streets homeless. The fact that you're still breathing, there's something to appreciate. Like there's always gonna be something to appreciate, right? The second thing you talk about is again, even if you're going through a tough time, is do know that this is a storm, not here to stay, is here to pass. And in the future pasting, something great is going to come down. Yet you got to believe that. You have to have faith. You have to believe that that's what's going to happen for you, right? So I really love that. So Derrick, how can people connect or find you?
Yeah, so honestly, Facebook is the best way, Derrick Alvarez. I'm on LinkedIn as well, same name. Honestly, if you want to just, you always go to www.flosstech.com. You can find me there. You can get me there. Or if you just want to reach out to me directly, I go by my father's last name for my email address, derrick.gerstmann@flosstech.com, derrick.gerstmann@flosstech.com. Just reach out to me wherever. I mean, even if it's business related or not, just if you want to just chat or talk to me, let me know. I'm happy to help whoever. If you just need someone to talk to, call me. Doesn't matter.
All right, awesome. And I have one last question for you before I let you go. People that are watching us, listening to us, if they're going through some sort of challenging moment, whatever that might be, what is one thing that they can do to start overcoming that challenge?
Micro goals, small things. You know what I mean? Wake up, first thing you do, make your bed, brush your teeth, take a shower. Those 3 things alone, you already accomplished those things. Note your accomplishments throughout the day. Make a list of things that you've done throughout the day. And then at the end of the day, take a look at the list and see all the things that you achieved. It might seem small, but every big thing is built through a bunch of small things. Great Wall of China is built brick by brick, just like anything else. You know what I mean? So if you just actually focus on just doing a bunch of little things, the big things will add up too, and you'll realize that you're doing a lot more. It's easy to go throughout an entire day and say, oh man, I got nothing done today. But if you actually make a list or actually go back and reflect on your day, what did you really do? Did you make your bed? Did you pump your car full of gas? Did you get to work on time? You know what I mean? Did you create a lead list? Whatever you're doing, you know what I mean? Did you do some type of effort? And it might not be big, but as long as you're making one small positive step every day, you're surprised how far you'll get.
Yeah, so. I love that, man. Well, Derrick, thank you so much. If there's anything else you want to say before I let you go?
One last thing. It's actually something that I've been saying a lot lately is that, in the grand scheme of things, when you actually look at it, everything in life is always trying to kill you, no matter what. And every time it doesn't, it's your way of saying, not today. And that's what you need to say every day, not today, no matter what. All right. Yeah. So keep on keeping on. Do what you got to do what you love. And if you got to do what you hate for a little while to get there, so be it. But, just find ways to smile every day. Just be happy 5 minutes a day, 5 minutes a day, every day. And at the end of the average lifespan, you'll have been happy for a whole year straight. So
yeah, I love that. Well, Derrick, thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate all your input and all of the information you had for us.
Yeah, I appreciate the opportunity. Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure.
Definitely. And for the rest of you guys, do me a favor, make sure you come here, you put your comments, like, subscribe, and share this with everybody because somebody needs to listen to this message. I will see you guys at the next episode of You Can Overcome Anything podcast show. Goodbye.
Hi, I'm Cesar Espino, real estate investor, business coach, and consultant, and author of the book, You Can Overcome Anything, Even When the World Says No. My number is 424-501-6046. In my book, I talk about making the necessary changes to shift your mind for prosperity and certainty. Pick up your copy at Amazon. I also love helping families with their real estate and can purchase your house fast and all cash. Follow me on Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn. My number is 424-501-6046.
Thank you for having me today. I am so glad you've tuned into this podcast. You can find me at your favorite podcast platform where you can like, subscribe, comment, and share. And to learn more about myself, my services, you can find me at www.cesarrespino.com, or you can also find me at your social media. Thanks for joining me, and I am looking forward to having you at the next episode. And know you truly can overcome anything.